All right, today we're going to dive into this really fascinating ancient tradition that, believe it or not, holds a super powerful secret for our modern lives. It's called Yalda. It's the Persian celebration of the winter solstice. Yep, the longest and darkest night of the entire year. Which kind of begs the question, right? Why on earth would a culture celebrate the longest, darkest night of the year? I mean, most of us might see that peak darkness as something to fear. But this tradition, it just leans right in and throws a party. So what do they know that we don't? Let's find out. Okay, so first things first, let's paint a picture of what this night actually looks like. If you're imagining something sad or gloomy, you couldn't be more wrong. Yalda Night is, well, it's the total opposite. It's this vibrant, warm, and honestly delicious celebration that's just packed with symbolism. So picture this. Families and friends get together, usually huddled around something called a corsi. It's this low, heated table that's covered in blankets. I mean, talk about the ultimate cozy setup. And the food is full of meaning. They eat these bright red pomegranates, and the idea is that all those tiny seeds together form one single fruit, a beautiful symbol for unity. They also eat watermelon, which is like this little slice of summer they've saved to remind them of warmth, even in the dead of winter. And this part is absolutely crucial. They read poetry from the great sage Hafiz. And his words, they're basically the key to unlocking this entire philosophy. But here's the thing. This isn't just about having a good time. All of it, the light, the warmth, the getting together, the poetry, it's all part of a very deliberate strategy. It's a collective act of defiance. It's a way of looking the deepest, darkest moment of the year right in the eye and actively choosing hope, choosing community, choosing knowledge over fear. Okay, so that brings us to the core of this whole thing. What is the big secret that Yalda is hiding in those long, dark hours? And this is where the philosophy just completely flips our whole perspective on its head. See, Yalda isn't seen as the victory of darkness. It's actually the moment of its defeat. It marks the precise astronomical instant when the tide begins to turn. From this exact moment forward, every single day gets just a little bit longer, a little bit brighter. So it's not an end at all. It's the very beginning of the sun's triumphant return. This contrast really shows you the genius of this philosophical shift. You know, our typical fear of darkness sees it as an ending, right? A time of loss and defeat. But the wisdom of Yalda, it just flips the script completely. That lowest point is reframed as this incredibly powerful moment of transition. It's a turning point that you're supposed to celebrate because it's the very birthplace of hope. And this quote right here, this is the heart of it all. The birth of the sun comes from the blackest moment of the night. Think about that. Light isn't born in spite of the darkness. It's born from the darkness. That moment of what feels like maximum despair, well, that's the very moment that contains the seed of maximum hope. It's this beautiful paradox that actually holds a fundamental law of nature and growth. So, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds nice and poetic, but is it just a concept? Absolutely not. This is a practical, real-world law that shows up literally everywhere in our modern lives once you know how to spot it. I mean, just think about it. In finance, when does a new bull market usually kick off? It's almost always at the point of maximum pessimism, right when everyone throws in the towel and sells. They even call it capitulation. Or what about physiology? How do our muscles actually get stronger? Well, it's from that deep strain, the microscopic tearing that happens during a tough workout. And what about learning? You know that feeling of peak confusion where your brain just feels like a scrambled mess? That's so often the moment right before the big breakthrough, that aha moment where everything finally clicks. Every single one of these is a Yalda moment. It's a point of intense pressure where growth is born directly out of the struggle. And that's the core lesson Yalda teaches us. Hitting what feels like rock bottom, it's not the end of the line. It's actually a signal that you've reached the turning point. The only way to go from there is up. All right, you can't really talk about Yalda without bringing in its spiritual guide, the legendary 14th century poet Hafiz. It's a tradition on Yalda Night for people to randomly open his book of poetry, looking for a bit of wisdom. And it's incredible how his words just perfectly echo this philosophy of hope. So he starts off with this reference to the story of Joseph, a figure who was lost, but eventually made a triumphant return. And Hafiz is basically making a promise here. He's saying that your current situation, what he calls this hut of sorrows, it isn't permanent. It is destined to become a rose garden. And you'll hear that refrain over and over, grieve not. And here, he's acknowledging that any journey toward a really worthy goal, he uses the Kaaba as the example, is going to have its challenges. There are going to be thorns. But the point is, these obstacles aren't a sign to give up or despair. They're just an expected, necessary part of any meaningful journey. And this one brings it right back around to the cosmos, to the very idea of Yalda, the turning of the spheres. The cycles of life and fate, they might not be going our way for a day or two, but the key thing to remember is that those spheres are always turning. The world is never the same. Nothing, and especially not hardship, lasts forever. So if we decode Hafiz's wisdom for our own lives, it looks something like this. The hut of sorrows, that's that feeling of being at rock bottom. The thorns, well, those are the necessary struggles we were just talking about. That muscle strain, that market panic, that brain-scrambling confusion. The turning of the spheres is the law of Yalda itself. Cycles always change, and darkness always gives way to light. And finally, the solitude of dark nights. That becomes your own personal Yalda. A time not for fear, but for deep, intense focus, where your best insights can be born. So, where does this leave us? What's the final practical takeaway from this beautiful ancient philosophy? How do we make absolutely sure that our own personal Yalda actually leads to a brand new dawn? Well, according to Hafiz and the whole spirit of Yalda, this hopeful transformation isn't automatic. It's not guaranteed. It all hinges on one crucial condition. And here it is. You have to use that extra moment of darkness, not for fear, but for focus and for effort. That one single extra minute of darkness on Yalda Night, it's not meant for despair. It's a gift. It's an opportunity to get together with people you love, to read, to think, to focus your energy. So when you find yourself in your own longest night, the key isn't to just sit back and passively wait for the sun to come up. It's to use the quiet and even the pressure of that moment to actively prepare for the dawn. And really, that is the ultimate promise of Yalda. Every single setback, every rock bottom, every moment of peak darkness you experience in your life is not a curse. It's a promise. A promise that's basically written into the laws of the cosmos, telling you that a new sun is on its way. So I want to leave you with this to think about. Take a look at the challenges you're facing right now, and instead of seeing them as endings, try to see them as the darkest, most powerful moment just before the sunrise. And ask yourself, what incredible dawn is my current darkness preparing me for?